Welcome to the Painting Lines Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things tennis. Join Erik and Aidan in their discussion for updates on news and pop culture, and from hot takes to betting, they've got you covered.
Ready? Play.
Welcome back to Painting Lines. Last week, we discussed the first week of the U.S. Open this year, and this week we'll be recapping the last few rounds, the final, and the tournament overall. Last week, we recorded the episode. It was halfway through the round of 16, so let's just kick it off from there. Monday had some good matches. Demonar versus Medvedev and Sinner versus Zverev kind of stood out in particular as being really high quality. Erik, do you have any matches or parts of those matches that stood out to you?
Yeah, I do. Obviously, I thought that Sinner was going to beat Zverev per the bet of the week last week, but that didn't happen. I don't know why Zverev played so well against Sinner and then just kind of dropped the ball against Alcaraz. It was kind of a anticlimactic comeback. Like once he did it, was Zverev back? That's what everyone's thinking. But other than that, just all around great tournament. Was not really surprised with the result we saw today. Welcome back, Djokovic. But yeah, what about you? What were you thinking?
That Zverev versus Sinner matchup, I think it was a great match, but because it was 5 sets and because it was such a close one, it really kind of screwed whoever won that match going into the next round, because you could tell the conditions were really tough for both of them. I mean, Sinner looked really drained in that match, and it was kind of shocking, honestly, that he was able to get through to that 5th set. But I actually thought once it went to that 5th set, Zverev might crumble, but he was able to get it done. And so I think it was an impressive win for Zverev, and I think he is back. I mean, he's a top 10 player again. That's an impressive thing to do, and to make it through as far as he did is really an accomplishment.
Yeah, no, not to discount him at all. Just I do think it's one of those situations, kind of like what we saw today, where Medvedev had beaten Alcaraz, but in a sense got kind of whooped by Djokovic today. Whereas I think Alcaraz would have played Djokovic a lot better, and we would have seen probably 5 sets in a tighter match.
I disagree in terms of the term getting whooped. I think even though it was 3 sets, I think it was relatively back and forth. They were having long, intense points. And while Djokovic did get the upper hand, I think it really came down to him winning a few key points. I think if someone gets whooped or smoked or whatever the term you're going to use, it has to be like the key points didn't really matter because they were so far ahead.
Mm-hmm. Right. We can table that. And what did you think of Medvedev and Demonar? I know you were at the match.
It was a really cool experience. I was a little tired, to be honest, because I've been sitting essentially in the same seat for 6 hours by the time that match came on. But it was really cool to see. I mean, I really like both players, but to be honest, I was rooting for Demonar because he's just one of my favorite players on the tour to watch. So I was kind of rooting for the upset. And to me, what really showed in this match was how the levels these players can play are sometimes unsustainable. Because in that first set, Demonar played completely lights out. It was like he wasn't missing anything. But I think the issue is that Medvedev is able to play at such a consistently high level, whereas Demonar wasn't able to keep that level that he had in that first set for 3 full sets.
So you think that's what it was? You think Demonar's level dropped off, or do you think Medvedev's level picked up?
Here's how I would describe it. I think that Demonar essentially played like 120% in that first set, and say Medvedev played 95. So obviously Demonar won that first set pretty handedly. I think it was 6-2. But then you go into the next set, and all of a sudden Demonar can't keep up 120% for the whole match. So now all of a sudden he's playing at like 90%, and Medvedev's playing at 95% still. And because of that, Medvedev's able to just break him down in those next 3 sets. And it's not really the fault of Demonar, because Demonar has to play pretty much at 120% to be able to beat Medvedev.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think Medvedev is kind of like Djokovic in this, where they'll not give up the first set, but once they lose the first set, they're not worried because they're able to make adjustments from it. So like they'll go through the first set, and this is where Medvedev really, and Djokovic, I think that's where they excel. They're able to come back and kind of pick apart their opponent. Demonar was great to come out hot, come out fast, but at that point, he didn't really have anything to gain from there. He couldn't really do the same thing he was doing because Medvedev was starting to be a little more meticulous, and the level of play just kind of dropped off. So, no, not what I expected after seeing the first set. I thought Demonar was kind of going to cruise.
It also comes down to just having that confidence in your game Medvedev goes into that second set and he has the same level of confidence in his game as he had in the first set, as he had throughout the entire tournament. Whereas I think for most other people, their confidence wavers much more significantly. I think other players seem to get much more boosts of confidence and much more drop-offs of confidence than you see from maybe Medvedev and Djokovic.
I agree. And where do you think you see these boosts and drop-offs in confidence? Are they like after sets? Are they mid sets? Is it a flip of the switch type of that you notice it, or is it kind of a slow draining?
I think usually it's a flip of a switch, and it comes down to usually key points being won. Someone gets a break, someone wins a set, and because of how tennis is set up with the scoring being once you've won a game, once you've won a set, the score in that game doesn't matter. For instance, you look at some of these long games that happen. Let's go back to Wimbledon even. When Alcaraz won that marathon game.
Yeah.
That's a flip of the switch. Alcaraz gets a huge boost of confidence winning that game versus I think that while Djokovic would gain some confidence if he'd won that game, it wouldn't be as much of a momentum shift as Alcaraz winning it. I think the impact more would have been on Alcaraz losing that game versus Djokovic gaining, if you see what I'm saying.
No, I do. And kind of a follow-up question is, do you think the lack of confidence on the other side comes from the player making errors or the player just getting dominated from the other person, right? Because there's two things where you can lack confidence. Hey, I'm not playing my best. I'm getting nervous. I'm getting tight. And the other side is I just can't. I'm trying my best. I'm doing everything I can, but my opponent is just outplaying me right now.
I think when you're playing against Djokovic and Medvedev, you tend to see more of the latter where they can just kind of wear you down and just not miss shots versus against someone like Alcaraz. I feel like you see more aggression and big shots being hit.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of saw that in Djokovic Shelton. Like Djokovic just, he didn't even let his foot off the gas.
Yeah, but I think that was an interesting match still, but we'll get into that a little later.
Yeah, we'll get in later.
But yeah, moving on into the quarters after that round of 16 day. I mean, Djokovic and Alcaraz, they kind of just cruised through their matchups, to be honest. Alcaraz kind of dominated Zverev and Djokovic beat Fritz pretty handedly. So
yeah, I know. Kind of a bummer there. I don't know what I expected with Fritz. I feel like, there was part of me that was thinking, oh yeah, this is going to be his year, but then the realistic part set in. So
yeah, it's weird because I'll be honest, I didn't really follow Fritz's run that closely in this tournament, but it didn't seem like he had that difficult of a run to the quarter.
Yeah.
But then he just got to the quarters and got kind of whooped by Djokovic.
Yeah. I do wonder if when you're a player like Fritz and the draw comes out, who you're more afraid of to be on the same side with, Alcaraz or Djokovic? I
feel like you have to say Djokovic, right? Because Djokovic is just this titan that you feel like is never going to miss. Whereas I think there's still a level of youth, like you believe in yourself because of how young Alcaraz is, no matter how good he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you saw that today too. Or not today, but Medvedev beating Alcaraz, but then not even coming close with Djokovic.
Yeah. But then just going on to the other quarter matches, Medvedev played Rublev and he won, but it wasn't, I think, as one-sided as it seemed because there were some breaks back and forth in that match. So it was not like Medvedev was just holding serve the entire time and never losing anything. There were some points where Rublev was up and you were like, oh, this might be going to some extra sets. And then Medvedev just broke back. But in the end, Medvedev got it done in 3 sets. And I think that was big. I think having 3-set matches and not losing a bunch of sets probably helps him going into that match against Alcaraz.
For sure. So I didn't actually get to catch the full match with Medvedev Rublev. I saw the highlights, but did you see a lot of just baseline deep ground strokes? Or because I feel like both of those guys don't like to come to the net.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like as you're saying, that was kind of what they tended to. I mean, obviously they came to the net every once in a while, but I feel like they tended toward that type of game.
Yeah, because Rublev just whacks the ball.
Watching it live when he played Draper, he just swings so hard. And you're like,
yeah, so much aggression.
What is happening? I think the biggest match, obviously, was Tiafoe versus Shelton from the quarters.
Why do you say that?
Because I just think it was the most interesting matchup. I think you had Tiafoe, who obviously had been to the semifinals the previous year, he was favored, but Shelton had all this momentum, just beat Tommy Paul. The two Americans, I think the buildup to this match was probably the most interesting. I mean, Rublev versus Medvedev had an interesting buildup since they're both Russian players and they're childhood friends, but
Rublev is Medvedev's daughter's godfather.
yeah, so very close relationship between those two guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously Shelton, a shock to be in the quarters. And I think he wasn't afraid of the moment. He jumped out and took that first set, didn't seem afraid of playing Tiafoe. Tiafoe kind of settled down in that second set. And so they split the first two. You know, you're going to 4 sets. You know, it's going to be a longer match. And the third set was actually really kind of a shocking set because each player got 3 breaks in the third set. They consistently were able to break their opponent, but then unable to consolidate that break. And this is kind of like shocking to me just because Shelton's biggest weapon, or at least one of his biggest weapons, is his massive serve.
Right.
So you would expect him to be able to, if he gets a break, to consolidate it immediately, but he just wasn't really able to do that.
Well, that's just part of his immaturity and lack of experience, I think.
He was able to get it done though in that third set in a close tiebreak. And like we were talking about with confidence swings, I think that tiebreak was a massive confidence swing for both players. I think Tiafoe really just lost a lot of confidence. He's like, okay, I'm down 2-1 against this guy. This guy has a lot of momentum. He beat Tommy Paul. He's hitting the shit out of the ball and it's going in. What do I do? And I think Shelton skyrocketed. I think he started feeling, I'm up 2-1. I can do this. I beat Tommy Paul. He's thinking the same things in the positive way.
I think this was one of those matches where Tiafoe had everything to lose, whereas Shelton had only something to gain, right? It was kind of, I would relate it back to Eubanks playing Tsitsipas in Wimbledon. You know, I think Shelton was able, no one really expected him to win. Like you said, you know, Tiafoe was a pretty heavy favorite in there. So Shelton got to get out there, play loose, play free. And that's what he does best, like you said. And I think Tiafoe, another added pressure was both American too. Tiafoe had that amazing semifinal run last year. A lot of people probably expected him to do it again. He probably expected it too. So I just think he kind of melted down there, and Shelton took advantage of that.
Yeah, I felt the pressure a little bit. This was just a massive win for Shelton in the end. I mean, he broke early in that 4th set and kind of took it comfortably in the end. I just think it's huge. I mean, this semifinal appearance put him into the top 20 rankings in the world. That's insane. I mean, he moved up from what, 45, 47 to top 20? That's a huge jump.
Let's see if he can stay there.
Yeah. And then obviously at the end of the match, Shelton's nice little hanging up the phone celebration made its first appearance of the tournament.
Do you know the background of that?
I do not. Do you know?
The whole? No, I don't. I was wondering.
I mean, maybe he just hanging up on the haters or something like that. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Hey, if anyone knows, feel free to leave a comment.
Yeah, but that put us in the semifinals, which was obviously Djokovic, Shelton, and Alcaraz, Medvedev.
Yeah, this one was funny. I watched it on my phone at work, and there would be times where it would be completely silent in the office, and I'd be like, yes or no. People are like, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing.
You're like, oh, the stock went down, man.
Yeah. No, so we have a TV. It's always playing CNBC, and before I put it on ESPN, like while the match was leading up, and my boss walked by and changed the channel. So yeah, that's when I put it on my phone.
Yeah, you're like, oh.
Yeah, okay. I'm like, I'm not missing this match.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
This was Shelton versus Djokovic.
Yeah. Because it was during the day. It was a 3 p.m. one, Friday.
I think in the end, this matchup was just the step from Tiafoe to Djokovic was just too much in terms of quality. But I think in the end, Shelton really kind of impressed me in that third set because I think you go into a match against Djokovic, especially as a 20-year-old, there's a huge mental advantage for Djokovic just because of who he is. You go up against Djokovic and it's like, as confident as you are, there's a level where in your back of your mind, you've got to be just like, shit, I'm going to lose this match.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And so he shows up, you go in and Djokovic gets one break in the first, takes it. And then Shelton actually had a chance to break back at 5-3 in that first set, which I think is crazy because it really shows how much key points can matter. Because if he breaks back at 5-3, all of a sudden is back on serve and maybe Shelton gains that confidence back. He's like, wait, I can break this guy? Like, That's possible. But then Djokovic won a little more comfortably in the second. But like I was saying, that third set was really interesting because I think Shelton actually settled in and started to realize, okay, this guy's human. I can beat this guy if I play well enough.
Mhm.
And so Djokovic broke him early, but Shelton battled and he broke back at 4-3. He actually had a break set point at 4-5. So another critical point. If he wins that point, all of a sudden he could have a massive momentum swing. I just want to set against Djokovic.
Mhm.
It all of a sudden becomes real after he breaks back, after he wins a set.
Mhm. Yeah, I wonder if Shelton wins that set and he's thinking, okay, at least I won one set off Djokovic, like without ever thinking he's going to win the match. But these are professional athletes. I'm sure they're not thinking they're going to lose.
I think with the type of player that Shelton is, he would have capitalized on the momentum.
Mhm.
And Djokovic would have had to raise his level to beat him in a fourth set, in a fifth
Yeah.
set.
How did you think Djokovic handled Shelton's serve? Because I feel like the first couple of service games, Shelton, he came out hot and was winning very easily. But then once Djokovic saw it more and more, it was just the serve wasn't as big of a factor as I thought it was going to be.
You got to think about the fact that Djokovic has played for so long. He's seen so many really good serves. I mean, he's played against guys like Roddick, Isner, massive serves. So when you're at Djokovic's level, you have to have other aspects that can push you over the top and not just a massive serve.
Right. All right. Should we hop into Medvedev and Alcaraz?
Yeah. It's funny because after Djokovic had won that match, I'm looking at it. I'm like, this really shows how much these top three guys are in a league of their own. They're just significantly separated from the 4 through 10 guys. If you look at any of these guys, the only person you could expect to beat one of them would be one of the other two.
I mean, Medvedev just, impresses me every time I watch this guy cover the court. I don't know where my roommate heard this, but he said today, he's like, yeah, the world is covered by 70% water and Medvedev covers the other 30% or something like that.
That's
like,
pretty funny.
Yeah, he is all over the place. And something I really enjoyed watching during this match was, how Alcaraz loves to go with his drop shot. Medvedev was getting there easily and not only like just getting the ball over the net, he was actually taking full swings on the drop shots and hitting them nice and deep where Alcaraz couldn't really do much. So I was, the guy's 6'6" and he moves like he's 6 feet.
It's just crazy considering how deep Medvedev plays. Like you would think the drop shot would just be there all day, and yet somehow he's able to get there.
He's got to figure out what to do against the serve and volley, though. Because if you want a quick point on Medvedev, you just serve and volley.
I mean, we saw Djokovic doing it, but Alcaraz was also trying to do it, and it was pretty successful. But I think Medvedev is hitting better returns against Alcaraz than he was.
I agree with that. I agree for sure. Do you think that has to do with Djokovic having a stronger serve than Alcaraz?
That could be it. I mean, being able to hit his points maybe better. Like we talked about last week with Shelton being able to improve his serve as time goes on. I think you're going to see the same thing with Alcaraz. I think his serve is going to get more precise as he gets older. And not that it's not precise now, just that I think Djokovic is able to pinpoint a serve out wide and then a volley.
Yeah, well, he's been playing for 20 years, so he probably knows every single angle on the court, like where he can serve, what
Exactly.
It just takes time. So
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, another thing in the Medvedev Alcaraz match was just Medvedev's double faults. He was serving well, I would say, but he was going for more of a high risk, high reward model there, where he was going for it all, and he was giving up a lot of free points.
Yeah, but I feel like you saw that more in the later sets because early on in that match, Medvedev was killing it on serve. You go over the first set and no breaks from either player. Medvedev takes it in that tie break. But in that second set, Medvedev he lost 2 points on serve total, and he held the first 3 service games at love. So he was giving no points to Alcaraz on his serve.
Yeah, this was definitely more towards the end of the match.
Yeah, but then in that third set, obviously Alcaraz got the break and just held on to it. Took the third set and regained some momentum. And then Medvedev way less dominant early in that fourth set, kind of like you were talking about. I mean, he had 3 break points and held serve at 1-1. And then at 2-3, there was that marathon game. Like that was an intense game right there.
Yeah, it had me on the edge of my seat. I was so tense. I don't know how they play so loosely. I'm not even playing, and I'm, a nervous wreck watching.
Exactly. You're like, Medvedev, change your strategy. Stop playing so far back.
I know,
He's
I
just
know.
taking advantage of it. But I mean, in the end, on the 19th point of the game, it worked out for him. So I guess if it works, you can't fault it. But
Yeah, crazy. I mean, another thing is, it shows that Alcaraz is beatable. Alcaraz is human. I was going in rooting for Medvedev just because I wanted to see kind of a little bit of a switch up.
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people were rooting for Alcaraz just because they wanted to see him play Djokovic again because that matchup has yet to disappoint.
Yeah, yeah, like we said last week, that should turn into the next biggest rivalry right now in tennis.
Yeah, until Djokovic inevitably retires. But
Hmm.
for now, while Djokovic is still at the top of his game, that looks like just the matchup to watch in every
Hmm.
tournament.
Yeah.
But then two holds a serve, and Medvedev has his chance to serve for the match. Immediately goes down 15-40. So Alcaraz has that chance to break back, and Medvedev battles back into it, converts on his fourth match point, and gets the win. So a couple things that stood out to me from this match: Alcaraz coming to the net off his serve. I think he did it very well.
I think he could have done it better.
He could have done it better, but it really, like you were saying, showed that Medvedev has to figure out how to deal with that serving volley
Hmm. Yeah.
because it seemed like such an effective strategy if
Right.
Alcaraz had a decent serve and a decent volley.
Right. And I feel like you can't do it every time on him because he'll expect it. It's just kind of I need a free point here. Let me just serve and volley. Serve out wide, cut it off, easy volley.
Yeah. Like if you get your first serve in, it's like a free point.
Yeah, exactly.
Second big thing to note was Medvedev's crazy efficiency on break points. Won 8 of 9 break points. I
Wow.
think that means that this is kind of an anomaly match. Like you
Hmm.
don't really expect a person to win that many break points because if you look at just 9 random service points, you wouldn't expect the returner to win 8 of 9.
That kind of goes into one of those cliche sports sayings like in football where they say offense wins games, defense wins championships. The efficiency on break points, that's what separates you, and that's what will ultimately win you matches. At least in this tournament, it didn't win you a slam, but it won you the match.
I think every sport has some sort of saying about
Hmm.
it's a game of inches. It's all about the one moment. So it's all about those tiny little things
Hmm.
where the game changes.
Yeah, got to capitalize on break points.
Exactly. So he did it and he won the match. But yeah, moving on to today's final. I mean, a little bit disappointing. We were hoping for a marathon match, kind of, but Djokovic jumped on him early, got a break in that first, and that was really all it took, I think. After that break, that first set was very close. I feel like there was a lot of long strategic rallies, but Medvedev can't break back, and Djokovic takes the first set. And then second set, kind of like that Alcaraz and Medvedev first set, nothing really between them, and goes to a tiebreak. And then with that one critical moment, Djokovic capitalizes on his first set point at 6-5 and takes a set.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was pretty cool that we got to see a little 2021 rematch, especially after Djokovic not being allowed to play last year. Coming into this year, revenge match. Medvedev had beat him in 2021 to ruin the calendar slam. I just kind of thought Djokovic was coming different. There was no way he was going to lose this match, especially against someone like Medvedev, because I feel like there was that revenge aspect to it. Plus, Djokovic and his crew already had all their 24 gear ready to go. So it's very confident and funny how they do that.
Yeah, I also think Medvedev actually explained why Djokovic would end up beating him in the end. And it was because Medvedev was like, if you beat Djokovic, he never comes back the same. He always changes.
Mhm.
It's not like if you beat Djokovic, he's going to be the same guy that you beat the next time you play him. He's going to have made the changes that were necessary. He's going to look at how you beat him and he's going to be like, okay, that's what I need to work on. That's what I need to change. That's how I need to strategize differently. And he got it done and made those changes to beat Medvedev this time.
Yeah, perfect example. Cincinnati too. Alcaraz beats him Wimbledon championship, and then Djokovic comes back, Cincinnati final. He's not losing again. I think that's part of the mentality too. Like you cannot compete with this guy and the whole Mamba mentality too. Just the fact that he's good friends with Tom Brady. He was friends with Kobe Bryant. He appreciates other high performing individuals. And I'm sure they just, jibe with each other, pick each other's brains. Like it's something you can't teach. And you saw in the second set, Djokovic was getting tired, right? Medvedev looked fresh. He was running all over. Djokovic was falling all over the court, putting his hands on his knees. He looked visibly tired. And for him to overcome that and win the tiebreaker, if you're Medvedev, you're thinking, man, I just tired this guy out, had him literally laying on the floor, and he's still able to beat me. Plus, I'm pretty sure it took a toll on Medvedev too. Remember, I told you I have this hypothesis where whoever wins the tiebreaker in like a second set, if you already have one before, will go on to win the match because the person who lost the tiebreaker has to start all the way back over, like win 3 sets in a row after being down 2 sets. It's very unlikely.
100%. It's really tough to fight through that. I mean, it's not even like even just losing the first 2 sets, because if you lose the first 2 sets, you can just be like, okay, this is my situation now. I have to go from here. But I think what happens if you're in a tiebreak, you're so close that your mind almost kind of gets locked into that. I was so close. I was so close. And that's all you're thinking about in this next set. And it's really hard to forget and move on, but it's what you have to do if you're gonna win those matches.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I mean, Djokovic won the match on his first match point. Didn't take him 4 like it took Medvedev to beat Alcaraz. Just got his first match point and just capitalized.
Yeah, did you feel it was kind of anticlimactic when he won? It was just as if he won any other match. I feel like when you win a Grand Slam, you always like drop your racket and fall on the floor for a bit. He just kind of walked over to the net. They did their handshake, and then he fell on the floor and did his whole thing. But I don't know. I felt like after the match, I wanted a little more emotion from Djokovic.
Maybe he feels like it's not genuine if he forces it. You know what I mean?
Dude, maybe it's just getting too easy for him.
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily that it's too easy. I just think that it's that he's done it so many times and he knows the feeling. And it wasn't like it was a really close match.
Yeah. Like that's in Cincinnati when he won that match and he ripped his shirt completely off. That's kind of what I expected Djokovic to do here. But like you said, it wasn't a tight match. He's been there before.
In Cincinnati, pent up emotions. He lost the Grand Slam final to Alcaraz. Now he beats him in this super tight match. So much intensity there. And so he rips his shirt off when he wins that match. This match, think about it. I mean, who did he beat? He beat Fritz in the quarters. He beat Shelton in the semis. And then Medvedev doesn't really put up that much of a fight. I mean, 3 sets. It wasn't like he completely dominated him, but it wasn't a super tight match either, really. Like it wasn't super intense. I think it was high quality tennis.
Yeah.
But not the closest match. So he doesn't have that built up pressure to make that exploding of emotions almost.
Yeah. Even though it was only 3 sets, it was pretty long match. I know the second set took like an hour 45. Those points are long, drawn out. I mean, I really I enjoyed watching. It was a very like strategic match.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a stat at one point that was like the average rally was 7 shots or something like that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, because usually that gets dragged down by the fact that a lot of rallies are 1, 3, something like that. But it seemed like every single time the return got back, it was just at least like a 10-point rally.
Right. And I said it a little before when Medvedev was playing Alcaraz, but I really commemorate him on his backhand angles where he'll run up to these drop shots and flick, like the slide, because he's a tall guy and these balls are very low. So he'll kind of like get low and then just flick with his backhand. And it's such a beautiful shot.
100%. But yeah, that was a final.
That was the final.
You want to hop into segments?
Let's do it. What I really saw, what stuck out as far as what's new was Ben Shelton, for being how young he is, very, very well media trained, well spoken, super calm, cool, collective. And when he was in the press conference after the Djokovic match, they asked him if he saw the celebration that Djokovic did. A little background. So after the match, Djokovic did the hang up the phone celebration. Don't think he was like mocking Shelton, but to use someone else's celebration against them in their home country, little disrespectful in my opinion. But it's Djokovic. He's gonna do what he wants. That's him. He's the competitor. He's not there to make friends. He's there to win. And if he pisses people off, he pisses people off. But one of the reporters asked Shelton if he saw it, and Shelton didn't see it in the moment. I feel like if he would have seen it in the moment, their handshake would have been a little different. Anyway, in the press conference, he goes, "Yeah, I always learned this when I was a kid, that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery." So he claps back. I think that is the best response you can have. He didn't get phased. He was very, very cool about it. And like I said, I'm just impressed with how he handled the situation.
My take on the situation was what Djokovic was saying is that you shouldn't be doing this celebration. You should respect these players, even if you beat them.
I do think if Shelton ever plays Djokovic and beats him at Wimbledon, he should eat the grass.
Oh my God.
He should do Djokovic's signature Wimbledon celebration
That'd
on
be
him.
crazy.
That would be awesome. All right, what did you see out there in the tennis world?
I saw a post on tennis.com that said that the WTA and ATP tours might merge. And to me, the first thing I thought is, how would this really change things? There'd be one governing body, but I don't know. Would it be better or worse? Wouldn't one governing body just mean that there's less focus for each of the sides of the tournament? That's my first thought. And it's not like the payment is different. Like the big thing we're focusing on the U.S. Open this year was that the payments were equal. So it's not like the payment is different, and once they merge, it's going to be the same. Like, what is the big change that's going to happen here?
I know this has been, a topic of discussion where they've been trying to consolidate. Each Grand Slam is its own entity too, and then there's the two tours. I think they are also talking about merging all the Grand Slams together too, or like creating one, like I said, governing body, one entity. So yeah, I don't know. I can't really speak too much on this yet as far as the benefits that we'll see, but I guess I know you brought this up just before, looking at the WTA website versus the ATP website. Maybe shared resources would be beneficial. I mean, I really can't think of an immediate benefit to this.
Yeah. You want to get into a bet of the week?
Yeah, pretty slow week, huh? Not a lot of action. Yeah, my bet is Maxime Cressy minus 135 over Emilio Nava. Yeah, I mean, just kind of going with the gut here. He's an American. I recognize his name. And 135 minus 135 doesn't seem terrible for Cressy. I feel like he's a pretty respectable player. Honestly, I should be taking a week or two off of betting just after the amount of degenerate moves I made during this US Open. But yeah, I'm gonna miss US Open betting. It was so much fun.
Yeah. Just bet
How
on
about
Djokovic on every match, and you would have probably won a lot of money.
Oh my gosh. No. Yeah,
But yeah,
anyway, what was your bet, or what is your bet of the week?
my bet of the week is Lucas Pouillet plus
Mm,
140 over Constant Lestien. I just picked him because I recognize Pouillet's name. He's a player that I've seen in bigger tournaments, and that's really my rationale. And I think it becomes way harder to pick in these challenger or lower level tournaments because you just know less, I feel like, about the players. He could be playing anybody. You don't know as much about some of these guys and what could happen. So
mhm.
my rationale is I recognize Pouillet's name more. So
Yeah, that's pretty fun. That's funny. All right, how about match of the week?
my match of the week, we kind of discussed it earlier.
Mhm.
Zverev over Sinner, 6-4, 3-6, 6-2, 4-6, 6-3. We detailed the match. Zverev, it's actually his fourth straight win over Sinner.
Mhm.
What's funny to me about this is that Sinner's only win actually came in their first meeting when Sinner was just inside the top 100 and Zverev was actually inside the top 10. So that was a massive upset when Sinner actually won that match. And now it's kind of flipped in where it's Sinner's the favorite.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was Medvedev beating Alcaraz just because, well, that score was 7-6, 6-1, 3-6, 6-3. Yeah, we talked about it before, but I This was a match. I feel like in the tournament, I didn't really have a whole lot of matches where I was really rooting for one player, right? It was mostly, hey, I just want to see good tennis. I want to see 5 sets. But this match, I was fully invested into Medvedev. I had made a couple risky bets and I had already told other people some risky bets too. So if they didn't pay out, I would have felt responsible. Anyway, this is like a match I really locked into, watched the whole thing, and I just loved it. I love the way Medvedev handles the crowd too, because the crowd was very, very pro Alcaraz. It's
100%.
tough. It is tough. And that's what I'm saying. I'm kind of I don't want to call myself a contrarian, but I like to root for the underdog. If everyone's going for Alcaraz, I'm going to go for Medvedev.
The thing that I didn't like was that the crowd was actually having an impact on the play because of how much they were rooting for Alcaraz. Like Medvedev would be going to serve, and all of a sudden they're all just yelling. And then in between first and second serve, they're yelling again. And the umpire just keeps going, please, please.
Yeah.
There's nothing he can really do about it, but it's just, I think that the crowd should respect how the match is going and not try to have an unfair influence for one player.
No, definitely. Like you said, the umpire, it was the first time I've ever heard an umpire say, hey, like, please, we have to keep it fair for both players.
Exactly.
Never heard that before. And it's just kind of crazy that fans would even do that. But no, I loved it. Like I said before, Alcaraz is beatable. He's not, invincible like everyone thinks he is.
100%.
All right, and that's the show. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Painting Lines Podcast. Feel free to shoot us a DM or email us any questions or thoughts at paintinglinespodcast@gmail.com.